Athlete Builder back at it, round two. Hashtag team Throckmorton. Again, something in the water. Shout out Dan Braun, who we got through Chipper Anderson. Something in the water over at Virginia Beach. Today we have Emily's better half, her husband Lee, former firefighter. Now, I'm not saying corporate world, but nothing, completely different kind of world. And also still works in a space where we're getting people better, not necessarily just saving lives when there's a fire or a catastrophe, but building people up and saving their lives that way. And I was telling Lee right before we started recording that I do like observing and witnessing the dynamic of different spouses or teammates and see how they interact. And I was telling him, I'm basically team no brakes, I'm team gas, and my wife is more team brakes, where she's like, hey, hold on a second here, pump the brakes and let's think about what we're doing so we don't end up in jail. So I was going to ask Lee right at the bat, between you and Emily, like which is which, who is who?
Well, if I'm in the back half of the podcast, if that's how it works out, prepare to be extremely underwhelmed because Emily's a stud and she's got a glow about her when she's doing these things, which she does a little more regularly than I do. But as we talked about before, I'm usually the break person. The
Mm-hmm.
way it works out is she'll come up with an idea and I'll poo-poo it because that's what I do. She'll ignore me. She'll do it anyway, and then she'll be wildly successful. So that's how it's worked out. So I don't poo-poo nearly as much as I used to because she has proved me wrong every single time,
Dang.
and it's just easier just to be supportive and roll with it, so I don't have to eat crow every day.
She was jumping on you, jumping your shit at the end of the last episode. In that we have these rapid fire questions at the end where it takes like each question is like 10 seconds. And I asked her what's her favorite lift, and she goes Bulgarian split squat. And I was like, okay, all right. And she goes, well, we need to ask my husband what he was lifting the other day because I was doing the 70s, and he was doing a lot less. So you need to jump
I
all over him.
I have she is 100% correct, and I am okay with that. I am okay with where her and I lift about the same amount of weight. She runs farther than I do. She runs faster than I do. So basically, I just carry her handbag around and help out with our son. That's essentially my role in the relationship nowadays.
Well, whatever. I don't want to sit there and pass judgment. Like whatever system works, right?
Yes, so
So
far so good.
if that's the way it's going to be, that's the way it's going to be. What was great about when Dan mentioned you guys? Because I look over the guests that we have, the topics we go into. We have a lot of strength and conditioning coaches. We have football coaches. We have players. We said, pro MLB. We've had pro football players. You name it, doctors, a lot of special forces, Navy SEALs. And I hadn't had any coaches dealing with adaptive athletes, and I hadn't had any coaches on that deal with, tactical, which is a different kind of athlete, right? So here I come across a husband-wife duo with two different components that we haven't had yet. So I was like, great, perfect. Let's learn some new tricks. And I was real excited to book you guys together. So my first question, which is kind of unusual, I haven't asked this one to most people, in dealing with your tactical athletes, and I say this question to all my athletes when they come in for the first time, what is your why? Why are you working with tactical athletes? Like, who cares? Why is that important to you?
Well, mainly because I was a tactical athlete for 30 years,
Okay.
and I've always been fascinated by high performance individuals in high stress situations to where the outcome is different than sport.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been fascinated that also living in Virginia Beach, there's a heavy military footprint, certainly a large special operations footprint. So I'm around these individuals regularly. They're neighbors, and it's interesting. It's always been interesting to me to see the physicality and the mindset of people in the tactical space. And I've just been around it for so long. It's always fascinated. It's what I continue to study even in retirement. And working with the company that I work for now allows me to stay in that space, stay current, stay competent, and enjoy myself, and still remain somewhat attached to the tactical community still.
Beautiful. So the work in which you spend your time also intertwines with your personal identity. In that, hey, I was a firefighter for a while, right? So it speaks to me. And if I would have done these things before, it probably would have helped me out. And I want to continue to pass that on legacy. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's what it sounds like to me. That's what I'm reading is that, hey, I worked in that world. I want to still impact that world, and maybe with a legacy or getting people better or safer or just improving them in how they go about things.
And I would have enjoyed having a lot of the information that I have now, 30 years ago. It would have definitely helped me. It would have made my road a little easier and it would have probably made me a more productive member of the community when I was in. But it's great now that I get to provide those that are coming behind me to be better.
Yeah, yes, yes, agreed. I do like the parallels, and people, I make this pitch to people because my background is finance and investments, 15 years, JP Morgan, hedge fund, trader, banking, et cetera. Then got some certifications, wrote a business plan, took classes, then got in the health and wellness world. And I'll say, if I'm looking at Lee or myself or a banker or a tactical athlete or someone that's a firefighter or a dad bod, mom bod, average Joe, there's still your mindset of moving forward, handling adversity, your identity, your core values. But then there's still the knowledge. How do I do these things? How do I move a barbell? How do I move a barbell if I'm an adaptive athlete? How do I move a barbell if I'm just regular Joe? But then there's still also what comes out of your mouth, your teammates. How do you work with people? And you can move the needle in all three areas and get those people better. And then training, nutrition, recovery are the things for your body. Can you move the needles there? So whether you're a banker, tactical athlete, average Joe, the lessons cross all the different spectrums. And so, what I wanted to ask you, tactical athletes, for those who don't know, explain what that is essentially.
That it's a big difference between tactical athlete and a sporting athlete. I mean, most folks could, name any number of sporting athletes, but the tactical athlete is a different subset. The the needs of the tactical athlete are the same as the sporting athlete, but the environment, the purpose of performance, the success metrics, the stress types, the training goals are going to be different. There, and I can be more specific on that. Is purpose of performance for a tactical athlete is going to be save your life, your colleague's life, or the life of a civilian that you've been in charge to take care of. The environment is not going to be a stadium. It's not going to be an arena. It's going to be any number of places, infinite. All right,
Very,
any
very,
place
very,
that something can happen, right? And the metrics can be life and death, and that's the big difference. The outcome has the potential to be life and death, not winning or losing a game. So the stakes are high. The stakes are high. Another big difference is going to be there's no off season and there's no 4 years you've made your millions of dollars and you've moved on to retirement. It is an ongoing season, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 30 years. So a lot of big differences to sporting athlete versus the tactical athlete, and those that is not an exhaustive list. There's a handful of other nuances between the two that that people delve into regularly.
I like the stadium component there. You can play at home or you play away. So you're at home half the time and away half the time. Their away games are all brand new places you're not that familiar with. But if you're a police officer, every day is a home away game, where it's all different. In addition, like the big game, like Ohio State's playing Michigan. So at this recording, Ohio State's getting ready to play Michigan here in a few days. It's building up. You got game plans. You get on the bus or you get on the plane. You get there. There's your team meal. Everything's very structured, organized, and it comes to a climax. Police officer, you could be driving along in the middle of the night. Everything's fine. Nothing's been going on for hours. You're on a 10-hour shift. You're 8 hours in, 2 hours to go, and then bam, crisis. So you go from zero to 100% adrenaline in an instant, potentially as a police officer, whereas it's more gradual with the athletes. They know what's coming next to some degree, right? The others, the tacticals, do not, and they have to be able to employ that supple leopard concept, which isn't really that true for adults, especially older ones, where you've been sitting, getting stiff with gear on, and then you have to go be physical immediately in stress. So break down a couple of those components on the mindset and also the physicality of training them. What's different? What's different about that, and how you train them and work with them?
Working with the tactical athletes
Yes,
versus
sir. Yep. Yeah. Yes,
yeah,
sir.
you want to make sure that they understand what their goal is, whatever that may be. If they're in the military, their X is going to be, you know, depending on what it is, what their job is within the military. Police officers are going to have something different. Firefighters are going to have something different, and you're going to have to find out where they are. Where are we starting? Where are we starting from? What do they need? You know, where do they need to go from where they're starting? The differences being, military. Maybe you're looking at a long ruck to a target, high intensity to the target. Then you're going to have to move back. I'm not sure if that's tactically accurate in 2025 anymore, but in some capacities it may be. Police officers, they're sedentary for most of the time, statistically, and then we've got periods of high intensity work going on, whether they're chasing a perpetrator, they're apprehending firefighters, 24-hour shifts. They're 3 in the morning, they're popping out of bed. Within 3-4 minutes, they're at the second floor of a structural fire, pulling hose. And the big difference in this compared to uh, athletes are it's going to be the generalization of the needs. Their specialization versus generalization. So tactical athletes have to be generalists. There has to be a wide variety of adaptations that are required in the tactical community versus a NFL running back that is, very, very, very specialized, or, even more receiver or kicker. Um, Very predictable environment versus unpredictable environment, and very specific adaptations versus very, very general adaptations with the tactical community.
And
So depending on where a person starts, if they come into the tactical community as a specialist, then they're going to have to kind of whatever end they're on. And usually I see them at one end of either an endurance athlete, sedentary, or strength athlete. Those are usually that's usually somewhere on that continuum. And you just got to find them more to the middle of that continuum somewhere. So they got a good breadth and depth of everything, since tactical space is going to require that from them.
sure, sure. In general, there's going to be a need for GPP, general physical preparedness. They got to be in shape to be able to handle their lifestyle. You got to have some ability to sprint it sometimes, right? Like you said, up the ladder or to a location. You have to be able to, their core to extremities, their core and their back has to be able to withstand their load, and oftentimes another load carrying things. They have to be powerful, right? Not just raw strength. There's the strength of carrying people and carrying things, carrying items, but then sometimes there's power because you could be, fighting, and so you got to be exerting power and force explosively against other folks. So it sounds like a generalist CrossFitter that does a lot of things pretty good, nothing awesome, is a good baseline starting point. Would you say that's a good approach or not so much?
It is, and it depends on, again, certain disciplines are going to require certain adaptations. But I like the tactical battery approach. That was, and I've tried to find out who coined that, because I stumbled across it on ChatGPT, and ChatGPT can't tell me who came up with that term. So I'm not going to take credit for it, but I like the thought process, and it's based in a little bit of exercise science. So it consists of two things. It's going to be your critical power, which is, if you think of the battery, that's going to be your charging system. And then W prime, which is going to be any work that you're doing above that critical power. So that's going to be your battery. So if you're thinking about that tactical athlete and whatever situation they're going to encounter, that critical power is going to be any metabolic demand that they can keep up with for a good duration. That ATP is being balanced. You can either move in the environment that you're in, you can move under the load that you're in for a good amount of time. With periodic bursts of that W prime, of that's going to be your dragging somebody out of a building after you have advanced the hose line to the second floor, or that's going to be your sprint from the car, apprehend the individual, maybe have to do that again in short order. So if you think of it in the battery analogy, is having that robust critical power in the beginning, which is going to be your aerobic base. It's going to be, working on that threshold, all that cardiac output work that you're going to do, the low end work. The zone two, I think, is the big term nowadays. Getting that zone two in to delay the use of that faster battery depleting activity, that W prime, to not drain that battery system that quickly, then to be able to balance those things is going to be huge. So if I have somebody that comes to me that is a power athlete, they haven't they haven't really done a lot of anaerobic or aerobic capacity work. I'm really going to hit them hard on that at first, because one thing I have learned in the tactical community is I've never seen somebody, in my experience, I've been to the police academy, I've been to the fire academy, and I have plenty of conversations with guys that are high level military, um, whether that be professionally or socially. And majority of people do not quit because something was too heavy at any given point. I've gotten to a point where something in the mission or the call for service is just absolutely too heavy and I can't move it. So what I do notice is people in those environments either are less optimal in the mission, or they quit the academy, or they quit the selection process because they either can't breathe, they've been over whatever the cardiovascular demands have overwhelmed their cardiovascular system, or a muscular endurance issue to where they just can't sustain a repeated effort over amount of time. And that's a big difference in the tactical space of what you're asked to do. You were asked to do a multitude of high intensity efforts balanced by low bouts of low intensity to recharge, and then repeat that effort over and over again. And it depends on what discipline you're in, how often that's going to be. So kind of like blackjack, where you're betting on, you're doubling down on a dealer's 4, 5, or 6. It might not win all the time, but when I'm taking an athlete, I'm going to put as much money as I can on doubling down on that high anaerobic ceiling and that wide aerobic base to keep them breathing and keep them that muscular endurance going, instead of overdoing the strength component, which I do see a lot. And that's a hot take for some folks, because everybody wants to look good in the bathing suit, and everybody wants to have the big muscles, and that's great. But operationally, those are the folks that I see struggling the most when those high intensity efforts come in repeatedly, or the mission or the call for service is extremely long. So that's my highlighted areas for when I'm working with a tactical athlete and the community, is I make sure that those things are taken care of, that they have a good amount of capacity, and those those disciplines and see where and just keep building and layering on top of those.
You mentioned, well, when I was talking about what I would envision, I pointed out 4 or 5 different components, and you definitely were correct in that some of those components are weighted more, like the conditioning piece, the aerobic capacity, and then the muscle repetition piece, which totally makes sense. Really, you were a firefighter for 30 years. What do you miss about it?
Um, I'll be honest with you. I started. It's been. Let's see. I'm on year 3 of being retired, and it's funny because I went and hiked Half Dome. I don't know if you've ever been to Yosemite and been in Half Dome.
In
Um,
23, I was.
okay, so we did the John Muir Trail. So that was about 9 miles straight up, and then you get to Half Dome and you do the cables. Well, um, there was a young man that was on the cables that just locked up. And for those that have been there, it's a 400 meters straight up. Um, you're locked in. If you don't have a harness, you're just holding on to cables, walking yourself up there. It pretty pretty dicey in some places. Well, this young man just did not want to move. And as you know, there's one way up and one way down on Half Dome. So um, mainly because we didn't want to sit there all day, we got a harness. Me and there were a couple buddies. I had a naval aviator with me, and I had another firefighter, and we pretty much climbed up there, got him harnessed up, talked him through it, and helped bring him back down, so we could kind of keep the traffic moving and all the people that were up there holding on to those cables. And the reason I'm bringing this up is that it had been that long since I had been involved in any situation that was,
Risky?
kind of got the adrenaline going.
Yeah.
Yes, there were some components to it. There was a little bit of chaos. We were organizing it. I missed that, and that's the big thing that I miss from being in the fire services is having that, being dropped in the middle of those chaotic situations that shouldn't be chaotic for us. They're not, but we're just there to kind of organize that and get everything moving in the right direction again. And I do miss that part. I didn't think I would, but 3 years removed from being in that environment, I kind of got a kick out of doing that again, and that surprised me, to be honest with you.
Gotcha. I don't know what the laws are like out in Virginia. In Indiana, if you join and you go through the police academy, the fire academy, you got to meet these PT tests and standards. And then once you're in, you're in. And there's no retesting. So I don't know if that's the same out in Virginia or not, but I got to wonder, without the accountability, how effective, even if you have the knowledge on how to train the tactical athlete, if the tactical employee is not willing and there's no stick. There's a carrot to do better, but if there's no stick, how do you keep moving people forward? And then in the second follow-up question, why the hell isn't there a stick?
Yes, you're bringing up very good questions, and these are things that I would bang my head against the wall regularly when I was active. I did what I could from my standpoint. I helped stand up a fitness committee with our department that did some great things. And I, as an officer, had some control over the station life. So I wanted a physical culture to be present in the station. I made sure that, and luckily I had a officer that worked with me that was on the same page. I made sure that we did, firefighting, EMS training at some point in the day, and we made an effort to do PT best you could with call volume every day. It was just, at 2 o'clock, we're doing PT. At 10 o'clock, we're doing some sort of in-house training, assuming nothing else is going on. And I think that if you can get buy-in culturally from the officers in individual stations, I think the rest of it takes care of itself. I empathize with chief officers that have a large plate and they're being pulled in all directions. And it's difficult for them to have to, you know, the physicality part of it, it's difficult for them to have to really kind of put with all the other things going on. We got to man the trucks. We have to fund, equipment. We have to, make sure that we're training for calls for service, all that good stuff. I understand, I empathize. I really think that it should be a higher priority for some places. Now, it's city dependent. The city that I live in, Virginia Beach, is extremely competent, extremely well funded. They've got some really smart people that work hard to train up the firefighters before they get to the house, and then um, give them access to information and help when they get out to the street. So there are places to where it is a very high priority. There are places where it's zero priority, and I think that has a lot to do with the paradigm of the person that's in charge. If they don't come from a physical culture, man, if I, you can imagine they're saying, I did it without working out, or I worked out at home, or I did whatever, and I've made it for 30 years, and now I'm the chief, so I don't feel that it's necessary for. But we're becoming more sophisticated as a community, and I think that across the board, military, police, fire, government agencies are all becoming very sophisticated. And again, to plug the company that I work for, O2X and companies like them are helping be subject matter experts to the departments to provide them with SMEs to kind of help out, for those that don't have the ability or the want to do the legwork. Because a lot of departments will put the guy that looks the best in the t-shirt in charge of the physical training, and that's not that the outcome on that isn't always the best. So, but it's coming. It's coming. It's much better than it was when I first came in, and I think in another 20 years it'll be exponentially better than it is now.
What I love about that answer is that several episodes ago, I'll never remember who it was a female uh, guest I had on. I asked her for a quote, and her quote was, be the change that you want to see in the world. So it's so easy for me to sit here and say, hey man, how come you firefighters are all just lazy fat shits? And generalize and point fingers versus saying, hey man, how about I help you guys? So when you are living, walking the walk and talking the talk at the same time, and you are being the change that you want to see in the world, well, everybody typically, not everybody, most rather just follow. No one wants to lead. No one wants to fight against the inertia. No one wants to do the hard things all the time. But if you get the people to that mindset, let's do hard things a little bit, just a little bit more. Let's do some hard things a little bit more, and then that becomes your new standard, and then you continue to elevate it. That ends up going a long way. We just had Sam Briggs on, and she's a firefighter, and she's a pretty well named CrossFit athlete. But she's like, yeah, I love being a firefighter, and I love that when I'm at the house, I can help lead by example and get people to, hey, come work out with me, come work out with me. And I asked her this question. I'll ask you, of the TV shows, the 911s and the backdrafts, are there any shows or movies you're like, yep, I love that. It's not right. It's not. It's Hollywood, or this is pretty accurate. But of those shows or movies, is there one you're like, I love that one, right? Golfers typically love Caddyshack or Tin Cup. But as a firefighter, is there a show or movie that you're like, yep, I love it?
Not the movies. The movies are a little spectacular. Well, all of them are a little spectacular. The TV show Rescue Me
Okay.
from early 2000s with Dennis Leary was spectacular in its display of station life. I thought it was very, very, very accurate. Certainly sensationalized, and it's a comedy, so there you have to impart that in there to make it interesting. But the even so much as on the way to calls, you're going to what's the most horrific situation to someone, and you're talking about the Super Bowl until you get there, and then it's we're locking in and getting after it. And when they would when they would show fires, they wouldn't it wouldn't be clear as a bell where you can see everybody and it's like the room's as clear as you and I right now because that's the most inaccurate part. So entertainment in firefighter entertainment is difficult because to be true, you wouldn't be able to see anything, and you can't have that in a movie or a TV show. So if you want now, Rescue Me gets a little grandiose at times and gets a little exaggerated, to say the least. But it's probably the best representation of the fire service that I can recall.
That's the one that you like. I like Dennis Leary, and he's an older guy now because I'm an older guy, and he's one of those angry comics,
Right.
where he's just like the Bill Burr currently, where he's pissed off, but he's funny. So I always liked having like watching whatever he was involved in.
A fire
Uh,
station is full of angry, funny guys.
okay, all
That
right,
is that is the epitome. That's the epitome of a fire station. Fifty
cool.
percent of them are angry, funny guys.
Well, when I remember taking my high school girlfriend to go see Backdraft. And I was like, oh man, look at that. That's cool. They're fighting these fires. And, Sam Briggs is making fun of it. She's like, yeah, they're running into the fire with no mask on. Like, come on. Or they're putting on for a second, then taking it off and looking around. Like, come on. I'm
But it
like,
was
yeah,
a great. It's a great recruiting. It's
sure.
like Top Gun. How many naval aviators
Saw
got in
Top
because
Gun.
of Top Gun?
Sure.
Backdraft was when I was graduating high school, and honestly, I think that movie had a lot to do with me wanting to get into the public safety space.
Well, plus you got Rebecca De Mornay and the other girlfriend. They're hanging out on top of the fire truck, on top of the hoses, banging it out. You're like, oh man, they fight fires and they get the girl. Like, this got to
Doesn't
be
hurt.
this has
Doesn't
got
hurt.
this got to be the way to go. I love, man. Your answers on your homework says that you're a nerd like I am, which I love because I like the nerd part. Now, most people on the show, they care about the funny stories, so you got to deliver that too somehow. But on the mindset piece, you wrote. So I asked, what were some things that have been critical, and you're like mission first focus, composure under stress, like doing things that are hard and focusing while you're under stress, and then discipline over motivation because motivation is fleeting. Discipline keeps you together. So talk about any of those components. And is there a way that you not legislate but coach that in the athlete? Because all these habits and tactics, if I'm a big James Clear Atomic Habits guy, everything is buildable based on habits. So is there a way that you go about building that with your tactical athletes?
I think an informed athlete, whether that be a sport athlete or a tactical athlete, is going to be a better athlete. I think that giving individuals, and I do it even today, the why of why we're doing something is very important. Whether that be, I'll take 5 minutes to go over 3 or 4 points that doing low intensity, high volume cardiovascular endurance work, i.e., running, biking, swimming. What are 3 physical adaptations that happen, and why is that important to us? And that goes to the mission first. Is that it leads to that. So if I get an athlete in, and I want to be a firefighter, I want to be a police officer. Okay, well then if you want to work for this city, this is going to be where the bar is set physically, and you need to be able to work towards attaining the physicality to be able to handle that situation. And that's where your goal is. Now, if I'm working out to be better at pickleball and look good in a bathing suit, that may diverge from what the mission is. Now, there's nothing wrong with those things, but you have to focus your mindset training, your physical training on what the mission is. And if you're going to be a firefighter in the city of Norfolk, Virginia, you need to be able to carry gear up to the top of a high rise and affect rescues, affect fire suppression once you get up there. So you need to know what your mission is, and you need to train accordingly. That's going to be huge. We had talked about mindset being composed under stress. If you tackle that, if you handle the physicality, if you get that physical piece removed from the puzzle to where you're not at the ninth floor of that high rise, or you're not at the finish of the foot chase, and you're still composed, and that physicality part's taken out, you're going to be able to make good decisions, and you're going to be doing what you need to do. You're going to be able to communicate. You're going to be able to move. That's going to be big. And you touched on it again, that the discipline over motivation. I used to, when I worked for the lifeguard service, one of my favorite things was to work the swim test. It was in a pool. It was anybody could show up to take the swim test, and there were a lot of motivated people on the first couple weeks to do that swim test. 500 meters, you can swim it any way you want, but it was took me 25 meters to see who the people that were disciplined enough to do what needed to be done to get there. Instant. I could tell you, well, I don't even need to count this person's laps, because I could tell in 30 seconds whether they're going to make it or not, because you could tell that they weren't disciplined enough to do what needed to be done to pass this test.
Mm.
So that's the things that I make sure with athletes, that I want to make sure that they understand, is that your actions have to they're either going to push you towards your goal, push you towards your mission, or they're gonna take you away. And if they know that, then when they're doing stuff that they might not want to do, because a lot of training for a specific mission set is not sexy, and it's not fun. And we're not going to be doing CrossFit workouts every day that are sexy and spicy and fun. You're going to have to do some strength work. You're going to have to do some aerobic capacity work. And if you know why, and you have the mindset that I'm gonna enjoy the process, I understand the process, then that's half the battle. And I think that it's worth a coach spending as much time developing that as the physicality. I mean, almost anybody can make somebody that's come off the couch be a better athlete, but just by running them and throwing weights at them. And I mean, that's the easy part. It's just getting them to switch that mindset upstairs is going to be more important in my mind.
The why is going to be huge. And that's why, in the athlete builder world and all the other worlds, mindset usually wins because it's the big governor, right? And if I go to you and you're a linebacker, and I'm going to say you're going to be moving laterally as you're reading the offense and pre-snap and getting ready to go, hey, you're a linebacker, you're making tackles, you're moving laterally. You're a lateral mover. This is who you are, part of your identity. Then you're going to understand when I say, hey, when we do some sumo deadlift, it helps in you moving laterally, because I'm tying what we're doing to your identity. If you say, hey, you need to be able to handle duress under time because you're a tactical worker and you're in the military, you have to ruck for a while. To your example, you got to be able to handle the load for a long time, the long, slow distance. If I say you're a Republican or Democrat, you're going to say, well, I vote this way because of this. So I'm going to tie what we're doing to being Republican or Democrat, whatever you are, Christian, non-believer, whatever. If you can tie it to their identity, the why, then what they're doing speaks to them. And they're like, well, it's about me. I'm getting me better, right? About what I'm about to do. So then you're like, hey, just do because I said so. Sometimes I do with my kids when they're younger. Hey, just do because I said so. Dad, why we got to squat? Because I said so, right? You know, because squatting's cool. No, Dad, whatever. Once that's like this legislating, it can get you a little ways. But if you can get more buy-in and you tie it to their identity, then they're going to push. I totally agree with that composure under stress. I don't know if you listened to any of the prior shows that we had on, but some of the guests invited me to do this New York City SEAL swim where we're raising money, where we run, well, we shuffle ceremony with the flags. But then we swim across the Hudson River, stopping at the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island and finishing at Manhattan to raise money for SEAL Foundation. And so being a strength athlete, like swimming, like I knew how to swim as a kid. They taught me the basics. And I spent 14 months. Like first day one was 10 lengths, rest after each length. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. This sucks. I can't breathe. But tomorrow I'm going to try to get 12 or 14 lengths and then keep pushing, right? So 14 months later, I can do the physical requirements, but the composure under stress, like my test was in a pool. It was controlled, climate controlled. You get in the Hudson River, there's the current, there's the chop, which I wasn't prepared for. There's the crowd of people, which I was moderately prepared for. People don't rise, in my opinion. I tell them, you're not going to rise to the occasion, that you're going to be able to perform at a certain level and then you're not going to elevate. If you do, if you won't be for long past that level, you're going to default to your level of training. And that day, the current was unseasonably strong. And after two of the three legs of swimming, the directors and the port authority they called it and said, "Hey man, people's lives are at risk. We're stopping this piece. We'll boat you over to Manhattan. You guys can run the rest of the way and finish the day." Long story short, awesome day. Raised a ton of money, outstanding experience. But the stress was real, and it breaks you down, right? Even if you're physically capable, the mental and physical stress. Talk about when people say, "Hey, man, you default to your level of training or you rise to the occasion." What have you found to be accurate?
Oh, 100%. And I had to. There were aspects of my job, especially in a leadership position, to where I had to really work hard to certainly make sure I had enough on my plate as an engine officer. The first person to show up to a fire scene. I had enough on my plate without having to worry about, am I going to be able to physically do what needs to be done. There was enough stressors there for me to be task saturated without having to think about that. So um, I'm a firm believer, because we were tested regularly, and it wasn't like somebody from the general population. And I don't mean this to be, I don't mean to talk down to anybody, but um, you know uh, an accountant talking about this when maybe something will happen in their life that they're going to have to find themselves in a life or death situation, maybe. Or what you were doing before when you were working for JB Morgan, it's you'll encounter that situation. We were encountering that situation on a daily basis. And so I got to see firsthand that if you were poorly trained, poorly experienced, poorly educated, that you were going to become task saturated pretty quickly, and you were going to lose that composure. And I'm not saying that I was fully composed on every call that I went on, because that is certainly not the case. But I recognized pretty quickly where the chinks in my armor were, and I recognized what the mission focus was, and I was disciplined enough to practice repetition and make sure that I had the physicality. And sometimes things would slip. I may be injured, and I may lose a step here and there. And I would notice on a call, but man, I got to the top of those steps, and I was breathing a little heavy on the radio, which is embarrassing. If to sound you sound out of shape when you're trying to make to delegate orders on a call when you can't breathe and you're talking on the radio. So that it motivated me to make sure that I was as good as I could be under those circumstances.
We have a number of firefighters in our gym, and 'cause I run a small gym about 13 years, and we have police officers too, and military guys, and all sorts of shapes and sizes, and they're quite desensitized to any kind of trauma or experiences. I mentioned this story, and they're like, "Yeah, sounds about right." I will say this though, when I talk to them, some of them, depending on the firehouse, some will go on runs, really for fires. Others have, car wrecks and electrical things. Some are in different areas or demographics where they're going a lot of runs. Now, when you're under stress, there's a cortisol problem, right? Which then leads to weight gain, can't calm down. Or if you're just going on you have interrupted sleep, like to a T. Like we're over 100 plus episodes deep. Every person I bring on here and ask them about recovery, they're like, sleep's number one. Yeah, I fucking know that, right? Yeah, sleep's number one. However, you have six runs from 10p to 8a, right? Your sleep is crap, and it takes at least a whole day to recover, and that's assuming that the runs are kind of benign. Like you go because someone smelled gas in their house and the fire department shows up. Yeah, you're still going on a run. Let alone you throw in a stressful one, baby dies, something right, something like that. Talk about tactics for improving sleep and recovery, because that's where you improve. That's where your brain heals, right? That's where your muscles get stronger, not from the training, but the actual recovery, and how they're all under duress because they're living that lifestyle. Talk about recovery and how to impact that positively.
You hit the nail on the head, and you don't and sleep. We've got three pillars. you've got sleep, nutrition, and strength conditioning. And used to be the strength conditioning was at the top of that pyramid. That was what everybody ate. To be better at anything, hit the strength conditioning. You know, nutrition started kind of creeping along to where, probably in the last 25, 30 years, we recognized that nutrition was important. Your MLB folks are not eating McDonald's in the clubhouse as much as they did 30 years ago. Maybe. I'm generalizing, I'm hoping. But what's really catching up, and I think what you're talking about is that how important that sleep is. And I'm lucky enough to be around some of the smartest people in sleep science. Through O2X, I get to watch them speak and see how important that is. Something you didn't touch on, the call volume. You don't even have to go on calls. You can just lay there. If you're like me, you're laying there and you're just ruminating on the fact that something horrible is getting ready to happen. You know
Sure.
that call, that the big one, the call with at the orphanage with the 100 babies on the top floor, that's coming. So that'll keep you up. But what I will say about sleep in the tactical environment, we might not be able to control the quantity of sleep. Now, we both agree that sleep's important. It's the best PED that's out there. It's free. I've retired, and I can't even tell you the positives. Um, Weight loss that needed to happen for me. Mental health improvements for me, not living that lifestyle anymore. But we can't do anything about the quality, but we can do something about the quantity. We can't do anything about the quantity. We can affect the quality. So in the military, that's a little bit difficult, but they're getting a little better. If you're out in the field, it's a little more difficult. When you're back at base, I think that they're kind of prioritizing that a little more than they have in the past. The police don't normally sleep at work, so they can work on quantity and quality at home. And in the fire department, and I'll tell you what I mean by quality when I get into the fire department part. So the fire station, the bell's going to go off. When the bell goes off, you have to get up. Sleep be damned. You're going to have to go take care of business. But you can design your stations to better adhere to good sleep quality while somebody is there, because you might get a good night's sleep. I mean, I definitely was at some slower stations that got pretty, you got a 5 or 6 hours most of the time, because they were veteran communities or whatnot. But when you're building your stations now, but it's not for sleep, but that's an ancillary benefit. But they're building stations to have individual rooms. The rooms are relatively soundproof. You can make them as dark as you want. You can make them as cool as you want. Um, they've even got it to where the lights don't come on unless it's your vehicle that's leaving. They're seeing the benefit to, if you're on a ladder truck and the engine's going, you can deviate what bells go off when, because they're seeing that that's important. So the quality of sleep would be prioritize 8 hours, use an eye mask, um, limit your caffeine, make sure that your room is cool and comfortable for you. And if you're in the military and you're at home at night, then you can take care of that at home, where you have quantity and quality that you can tackle. If you're in the police department, shifts, it's difficult when you work midnights because you come home but you have to fight to find a dark, cold place for you to sleep and prioritize that sleep, because it's going to be important down the road. And when you're at the station, if you're in a bunk room that's communal and open, you need to make that a bunk room when it's time to sleep. 9 o'clock, let's just say I'm making a number up depending on what you're saying. 9 o'clock is time for bed. It's no longer a place to hang out, chit chat, and play ping pong. It is time to go to sleep. And if somebody needs a CPAP, get them a CPAP. Try to keep the snoring to a minimum. But it's imperative, especially on tactical athletes, because just the lifestyle is so difficult, that something so easy as improving sleep quality and prioritizing the quantity will make big differences. And again, I tell people when I see them, they ask about, what's been the biggest change in retirement, and that has been it, is most nights getting 7, 8, 9 hours of sleep, prioritizing that. And it's just made positive benefits to me in a lot of different ways. So, it's not sleep. I'll sleep when I'm dead. It's cool to stay up. It's all that. You're going to pay for it. You're going to pay for it down the road. There's no question.
Totally agree. Whether you're a tactical athlete or not, having a dark room, huge. Having a set schedule that you try to keep all the time, so you don't self-inflict jet lag. Keeping a cool room, even a white noise, all helps. Things that are pretty easy to implement at home and sometimes at work as well. I totally empathize with the just being nervous about there could be a call. And I'm not there because I didn't live that lifestyle. But if you have a newborn baby and you're expecting to be up, that's one piece. So the moms and dads there. When I started my gym, it was so rough at first, and I finally systematized some things, and I knew that the first of the month and the 15th of the month were the days I did billing. Well, I'd be worried because that next morning, sometime after 12, between 12 and 1 a.m., I'm gonna get an email with my results, right? So with a initially weak failing business, you're afraid on those days when you wake up, like, shit, man, what's this number going to be? Because some people may have canceled or whatever, blah blah blah. So until you get used to it, you get a budget and things you grow as a business owner, that could keep you awake. So just having that stress over your head, and nothing might happen, everything might be fine the next day. But if you're used to having rough calls, and just having that stress hang over you is going to impact. And you're right. Excuse me. Physical benefits. When I found someone to take over the 5:30 a.m. class, right? Had weight loss. I'm like, I feel better, had more energy. I'm not as big of a dick, so it's huge.
Well, and that's another proponent for the physical side of it. So if you know that you're going to live a lifestyle to where sleep quantity is not in your control, being as physically fit as possible is going to help, buttress against the negative effects. It's gonna hopefully counteract or maybe dampen some of the more untoward effects of sleep deprivation. But I know that life well. I really do.
So my wife works in the pharmaceutical world. I met her at my gym. So now we're good and married, and we have our 6 kids. It's hard to separate church and state in that we go to the gym. She trains there. I train there. We train other places. We train people. We come home, and then sitting around the dinner table, or we're in bed, or we're watching a movie, or whatever. We're always talking shop at some point throughout the conversation. And with you and your wife basically living it like full-time jobs, right? Is it you guys ever talk about the news or the weather, or is it always just talking shop? Because you got. I'm not saying your wife isn't intelligent; they're both very very smart. But she has a lot of high energy as well. Always wanting to probably get into things, and she's like, "Yeah, you work 24 hours a day, and it's great, and I love it." Is what she said, essentially. So, are you guys able to take a break and a breather, or is it talking about, hey, we're training conjugate this week, and we're doing a 5K every day on top of it, or always talking shop? What's that like?
I'll be honest with you. The days of us talking about specifics as far as tactics at the gym, we don't really do that too much. We might ask, "Hey, how did this class go?" Or
Yeah, yeah.
how did that go? But usually, she programs and coaches her classes or whatever she's doing. I'll do the same when I'm there, and she'll defer to me on a lot of that. So we really don't sit around and do a lot of programming talk, to be honest with you. And certainly with us having our first child, that's 99.9% of our conversations is going to be about Knox and what's going on with him. So usually we if we talk anything about shop, it'll be uh strategy for the gym. It'll be the kind of the behind the paywall kind of stuff. And that's usually where most of our conversations are, and most of the things that I have to do with the gym is just kind of helping her on the back end.
What a great blessing and gift for Knox that he's going to grow up with people dropping weights, trying to climb a rope, and then they'll could be in there and they'll be standing on the rings, holding on to like a swing set, and then trying to climb himself up, to do a pull up and jump and climb up on boxes where it's just normalized. Hey, we just do physical things. You know,
I can't get it. I'm trying to brief a workout for 40 people and I can't get anything done because he's in the corner. If I say burpee, nobody's going to pay attention to me when a 20-month-old is doing a burpee on the, 3 feet from where I'm standing. If
right?
so he is definitely he's definitely doing gym stuff. He's not doing finger painting and playing with blocks. We've got him. He enjoys it. If he didn't, we wouldn't push it on him. But he's got his own barbell set. He's got a little exercise bike. He's got sleds to push. I mean, if you look at my wife's social media, you'd just be in hysterics at his antics at the gym. And I guess if he was at daycare, there'd be a different. He'd be doing different things. But he's every much as much of a gym rat as anybody around there.
Yeah, we have several members that bring in, young little kids from a get go, and they'll just put them in when they can get hurt. They'll put them in this packing place so they don't crawl underneath someone who's split jerking. But it's just normally family goes to the gym. We have a little less time at home, but we spend time together as a family at the gym when we're trying to be healthy. So that's an awesome gift. When you're training, let's say you're training yourself, as we kind of wrap up here, what do you like to listen to?
I, be, I'm gonna be honest with you. I used to, when I was younger, I used to listen to music because that was really all you had. Nowadays, I almost feel guilty listening to music because there's so much podcast, YouTube videos, and I am really a strength conditioning geek in certainly in the tactical side. I and it's what I consume. And it's some of my friends just think it's insane that you would go for a run and listen to a podcast. Um, but that's normally what I do. So instead of in lieu of a podcast, a YouTube video on something, and occasionally I'll listen to music if I'm just overwhelmed with listening to people talk about mitochondria or anaerobic reserve or W prime. I'll get to some music every once in a while, but mostly it's informational stuff.
Gotcha. I do like listening to the podcast, things I can learn if I'm doing something where I don't have to think a whole lot. So if I'm jogging or I'm running a trail run, well, if I'm running a trail run, I really want to be in nature, so I probably don't listen to anything. But if I'm on the road, I haven't done this where I'm swimming in a pool because swimming in a pool is unbelievably boring, right? But so I will listen to something where I can learn something. If I have to think, like I'm concentrating on maxing out or I'm doing anything kind of technical, I don't want to be thinking about one thing and then over here, my other part of my brain thinking about doing something physical. If it's easier, or maybe we're at the end where it's accessories and I'm just kind of just pushing through. A lot of times I'll listen to something like motivational montage, or if I'm just kind of just chilling along, I want to be in my own head. I'll just put on either nothing or maybe some country music that doesn't really bother me.
The great thing is we have infinite choices now,
Sure do.
whereas 25 years ago it was the radio.
Right.
That was or a Walkman.
Yeah, I have 6 or 8 songs on one side of the tape in my Walkman, and I pull that out and then fast forward to the other 6 or 8 songs I want to listen on the other side of the tape, and then do it all over again.
Right. Right.
I'm very excited to hear this answer this next question because I got one answer from your wife, and I'm going to word it the exact same way I worded it for her. If you and she were going to go on a bucket adventure to travel to some place you've never been to before, and it's just you two, it's not with your kid, not anyone else, where would you want to go?
Well, not having heard her answer, I guarantee she said that she's not leaving her son anywhere. So he's coming with, and that's the truth. Places that we haven't gone. I there's a lot of places that we have gone that we like repeat. We're the type of people that repeat trips, and Iceland we're big fans of, and there are places in Iceland that we haven't been that we would like to revisit. We're also big fans of Costa Rica. Nosara specifically is a great place. We haven't been there since we had Knox, but once he gets to the age that we can go back there, we'll go and we'll explore some parts of Costa Rica that we haven't seen before. But those are two at the top of the list for us.
Well, you're right. She said she's bringing the boy.
Yeah.
And even though I said pick a place you've never been, she goes, "We're going back to Iceland." And I
Well,
was like, "Well,
I'm glad
oh,
to see we're on the same page.
I see that. Yeah, yeah, I got
Yeah.
it." Do you have a favorite sports movie?
Rudy.
Rudy.
And I'll tell you why. Because I have zero athletic talent. None. Born without, if you could be born with less than zero, I have that. Um, 5 foot nothing, 100 and nothing,
Nothing.
I think is what it was. But I'm not quite 5 foot nothing and 100 nothing. But the perseverance and you know, I realize that the movie is Hollywood, but the perseverance of just keep driving, keep grinding, and his mission focus was to get on that football field, and he succeeded.
You did. Do you have a favorite sport to watch?
I used to be, I don't watch sports as much as I used to. I'd have to say I was probably the biggest NFL fan. Um, and I'd say if I had to get back to watching sports, I cut my cable, you know, probably 10, 15 years ago. And then once I did that, I just kind of got out of the sports thing. But when the playoffs come around, when NFL playoffs come around, I usually pop back on and jump in and see what's going on. So, if I lived in Europe, I would be a soccer fan, guaranteed. I'd be a soccer fan if I was in a place that soccer came on at a respectable time instead of 9:30 in the morning on a weekday when I can't watch it. So, um,
If I were in
that,
Europe, I'd be big into the Six Nations and rugby. I enjoy watching that. It's like soccer, but football, you know, with all the context.
mhm.
So I do, and I do like the documentaries on Netflix about it. So that's definitely something I would be into. How about an athlete, young or old, could be dead, could be alive, athlete you like to see play?
Let's see. Y- You know, I heard somebody say the other day, they were asked the same question, and to really dig deep, we could go to uh it's probably not that deep, but Bo Jackson, I think, mainly because he was just because I'm in awe of the amount. So he got all the physical talent, like
All of it. Yep.
all of it, 100%. So I'm at zero, and Bo Jackson is at 100. So I'm fascinated by Bo Jackson's exploit, and it breaks my heart when I see documentaries on him, and to think that he could have done so much more had he not been injured like he was. But amazing athlete.
In addition, you know, he wasn't lazy. You know, he has all this talent and then worked. You know, so you know, bang, just watching that. You have a book recommendation for us?
I like, you know, I was thinking about that today. As much of a geek as I am in strength and conditioning with the tactical space, leadership is another area that I like to study. I've been in leadership roles since I was a teenager, and Mr. Jocko Willink wrote a good book, Leadership Strategy and Tactics, and I pull a lot. You know, obviously they were uh, military centric, but there's certain a lot of his lessons that he learned on the battlefield are applicable
Anywhere.
to anywhere. Yeah, so that's going to be my book recommendation for. And you brought up Supple Leopard too earlier. I heard you bring that up, Mister. Uh, um,
How we start it?
Mr. Starrett's book is definitely a Bible for coaches to use on mobility. So that's another one.
Sure. Uh, this could be a real life person, or it could just be something fictional. You got a hero or superhero for us?
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with you know, we're gonna go back to the comics, and I'll have a good reason for it. So Batman, and mainly because Batman is has no superpowers. He's just rich and driven and disciplined, and he likes to grind and he likes to work, and um, I admire that. You know, he just
He's not stupid either. He uses his brain and his physical ability.
exactly. And I mean, you know, he built himself up,
Yeah.
mission oriented. disciplined,
That's right.
composed under stress.
Yep.
So yeah, like him.
How about a villain?
Well, if it's Batman, then it's got to be Joker. And to be honest with you, the Joker is more of a favorite supervillain for me, more because the opportunity that is given actors to do great interpretations on film of that character. Not as much, the character itself, but some of the portrayals online or in the movie theater for that has just been amazing, all the way from Nicholson up to to Ledger have been iconic.
Yep. I do love that component. It's the psyche and the chaos and the destruction and the that you can see in real time. Which was it's kind of I find it fascinating. Sadly, um, it's also why I probably like Hannibal Lecter in
Right.
Silence of the Lambs.
Right.
What's your favorite lift?
I'm gonna say a thruster, and for those that in the audience, there's probably everybody knows what a thruster is, but that's going to be
Yeah,
pretty much a power clean to a front rack, then a front squat to overhead, and I think mainly because it gets there's so much real estate it covers.
yeah,
Functionally, I think but again, I hate strength work. I think I would rather go run 10 miles than do a 5x5 back squat. But I do it because I know it's necessary and I'm disciplined. But if I had only had to do one lift, I think a thruster would be it because it covers so many bases.
yeah. You feel it right away. And I remember when I first started doing it, I was like, my God, this is awful. I hate every bit of this. Why can't I just squat it down and up and be done? But no, you have to have that power component. Do you have a quote for us?
Trust the process. I think is many people have said that if you understand the process and you trust the process, especially trusting the process, whatever the outcome is gonna happen. Just trust your process. Make sure it's the correct process. If it's the correct process, trust it, stick with it, and the outcome, whatever that may be, will take care of itself.
When people ask me about the swim, like, hey, Jim, you're 50 years old. You've never been a swimmer in your life, strength athlete. You can push sleds and you can go for a jog, but swimming is a whole different animal. Like, what makes you think you can do that? And I was like, if the philosophy works, where you have time under tension and consistency, and if you have someone who's smarter than me telling you, hey, here's a better way to stroke, or here's a better way to kick. If I'm just consistent day in and day out, and I have someone coaching me along, like I gotta get there, right?
Oh yeah.
You gotta get there. And so whether you want to be an attorney or a doctor or a Navy SEAL or whatever, if you have this runway that's long enough and you're diligent every day, like you got to get there. And so the process will get you there. So that was one of the reasons to prove to myself, but also to others that hey, man, 50 years old man never swam in his life. He's swimming across the Hudson. Like pay attention. You're like this shit works. Where can people find you, Lee?
Well, let's see. I Instagram probably be the easiest to find me. I'm not out there quite as much as I used to since I started working again. But Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, I'm on all those good things. If anybody wants to reach out and chop it up about human performance and the tactical space.
Beautiful, beautiful. Man, thank you for the gift of your time and effort, knowledge. Selfishly, for me, it's just getting better with people every week that I've never met. So I really enjoy the conversation and the insights, like the nerd work. For those who want to get a hold of us and keep sending us your questions, info@athlete-builder.com. Send them our way and we'll keep sending you our best responses back. Um, Man, Lee, great time. Wish you and Emily and Knox all the best. Hopefully, our paths cross again down the road. But thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you.
All right, see you.